You're listening to the Rebel Instinct podcast by Act On Software for all the marketing innovators living outside the box. What's good, everybody? Thank you so much for breaking the mold with us. I'm Galen Etlin with Act On Software, joined by my VP of Marketing, Casey Monk, and our guest today, Cody Putman, Experiential Marketing Manager at Afresh. And Cody's in Bend, Oregon, marketing professional there who thrives on making products, ideas, and teams move.
Hey, Cody.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Even though I see you around town here in Bend, it's always good to see you in a professional setting as well.
Always great to get to catch up.
I love it. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world, and this is the truth. Like many people have, Cody's their favorite. But yeah, we forgot to mention talented pastry chef. I'm still thinking about that Fruity Pebbles ice cream you made for me that one time. Do you have any fall flavors?
You know I do. Fall is my absolute favorite season, so maybe expect a fall treat at some point coming your way, because you know I have to test those out on all my friends.
I cannot wait to get that doorbell ringing with ice cream.
We're going to have dessert delivered to the Portland office when you visit us, Casey?
Possibly. We'll work on it. We'll work on the tries. But Cody, so experiential marketing, it's a relatively newly coined term in the marketing space. What exactly is it? I know we've spent time together when you had field marketing manager positions, and this is your new role. Tell us about what it exactly is.
Yeah, it's interesting. It actually was pretty new for myself too when I first learned about it. Essentially, at its core, experiential marketing is really helping brands create that relationship with their customers, building that bridge from, top of funnel and creating that relationship all the way through. You have the opportunity to really create positive brand experiences with folks that you're trying to get to become customers. And there's great ways to get to that: online, offline channels. Through trade shows, events, direct mail, virtual experiences, even ABM. There's just so many tools in the toolbox that you get to use, and you get to be creative while doing it. I think it's pretty easy to go and just show up and have a presence, but it's really wrapping bigger ideas around that presence and making sure that folks are walking away with a really, really positive experience, because they're going to associate that positive experience throughout their entire journey with the company. So, the better you can start off the bat, the more successful that customer is going to be in the future as well.
Interesting. It's very holistic, and you're really thinking about like every single encounter that a customer might have with the brand.
Yeah, there's so many, and every single touch point is critical. And I think all too often those smaller interactions tend to go underlooked. So, the more you can spend some time focusing on making those extremely positive, the better.
I love that for you. I can't wait to see what you're cooking up over there at your new role.
You're mentioning you're really using all of the tools at your disposal, and it kind of seems like your field would utilize some guerrilla marketing tactics, if you will. What are some of the weirdly wonderful campaigns that you've seen deployed successfully?
One of my favorite ones, I wasn't involved in at all, is in a totally other area. I'm a really big fan of travel and tourism, and being from Oregon myself, I really appreciate some of the work that the people over at Travel Oregon get to do. I don't know if any of you remember this, since you're based in Portland, or at least in Oregon as well, but Travel Oregon put out this incredible campaign called the 7 Wonders of Oregon.
All we can figure is whoever named the 7 Wonders of the world never set foot in Oregon.
What they did is they just took some of these incredible sites that we have and turned it into a campaign that got people super interested in visiting us. But not only did it encourage folks from outside of the state to come in, but it also really encouraged people who were living in Oregon to go and visit some of those places as well, because it wasn't just like an online ad or a commercial that you saw on TV, but it was in print, it was in magazines, on airplanes, it was in stores, like a checklist of sorts. I mean, you literally saw it everywhere. And, having a ton of family and friends that grew up here, I think every single person that I knew was really considering, have I visited all 7 of these? How do I get there? Making plans either that summer or throughout the year to go and visit that. And I just thought it was incredible to see the reaction that people had to some of these places that maybe went a little under the radar, but they made such a big splash, in the travel and tourism industry, that some of these places were seeing traffic numbers that they had never seen before. So truly, it was just incredible to kind of see people rally around a campaign like that and to get excited about either coming to visit us or even just checking a little bit more about your own state. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that when I first moved. And I was like, I've got to visit all these places. And I find myself introducing, this list to other Oregonians, and it creates such a sense of pride of like all these amazing places that we have and what special, day trips that you can have to just experience these amazing places. So I love that campaign too.
It was fantastic.
Well, Cody, so your job connects the offline and the online world marketing experiences, right? So how can marketers connect these things in a way that can feel holistic and actually connected? Because a lot of times the demand gen folks will be over here running things a certain way, field marketing, sales. So how do you, in your role to kind of connect these things, what tactics do you do to create that experience that's consistent, regardless if you're interacting on the website, at an event, getting a piece of direct mail? What sort of philosophies or strategies are you doing to do that?
I think intent data is super helpful in not only understanding what people are doing online. So are they engaging with certain ebooks or case studies? What specific type of content really resonates with them? Is there a topic that's more interesting to them? But really combining that with a lot of that offline channel as well. So getting some qualitative data when you're on site, like at a trade show, you really should be understanding more about what those folks are talking about, what's resonating at that show, what's interesting to them when they come to visit you at your booth. Are you taking notes on that? Are you making sure that you understand what is actually going to be relevant to them as you start to follow up? And then another piece of it too is really not stopping at the MQL or SQL or sort of whatever metric you're looking at in terms of conversion and passing it off to sales. Experiential marketing is really encompassing all of it. So you're really focusing in on ensuring that you have the right data across the entirety of the funnel, because that helps your sellers as well sort of get the right message out to them at the right time too. If you're just passing it off to sales and they don't really have that indication of, all right, here's what we were talking about with them, then that's where that communication and that storyline starts to break down. So keeping that story consistent across the board is always really critical. And then I would say too, just having that connection with sales, it's so critical. Sometimes marketing and sales teams tend to work in different spheres, but ensuring that they are fully involved and aware of where your campaign is headed, what type of messaging you're putting out there, and providing them something more actionable in terms of follow-up is really important. They can then combine that intent data, other assets that you've created, and the plan you have for follow-up, and start to build something out on their own to ensure that there's that personalization in there. There's nothing more frustrating than like showing up at a trade show, talking to someone, and then you have someone else reach out to you that has a completely different story, or it really isn't even hitting on some of those things that you talked about previously. It's, it's kind of like, are they listening to me? Make sure they feel like they're being listened to and understood. And there's so many great tools that you can leverage now to be able to do that, whether it's intent data, automation, what have you. It's pretty incredible what you can accomplish now.
That's so true. And I think in seeing you in action, like I think those relationships that you have to build with stakeholders that may not be under your direct, management. So, I mean, other than, providing baked goods, how have you been able to get people to come, in line with what needs to happen to create that holistic experience? What sort of things have been successful for you in your career?
I find involving every stakeholder from the get-go is really critical. Even if it's just a brainstorm session at the beginning, understanding their ideas, what they're interested in, what they're hearing on the ground, and incorporating that into a campaign plan is really critical. But then it's also ensuring that everyone is in lockstep as you go throughout that entire process and the plan. I tend to find that as teams sort of feel that like better buy-in, or at least with the campaign, and they understand where it's heading, and they start to get excited about it. And I think so much around in creating a positive experience is really building that momentum and creating a lot of energy for folks, because if they feel that energy, if your teams are feeling it, the folks that you're trying to work with on the show floor, they're going to feel it too.
Yeah, you got to keep those vibrations high.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what's the most rebellious thing that you've tried with your experiential marketing?
Oh gosh, it's always fun to get to try like some new tactics, and sometimes you can do it in like big campaigns and make a big splash. But I like to sort of find some of those more like micro moments at different either events or virtually as well. I think one of my favorite things that I ever did, it was almost by accident, but in a way it was also quite intentional. We were at this show down in San Diego, and I usually try to wrap some sort of theme around our messaging when we're at a show. And sometimes it's based off of the theme of the conference, or maybe it's just themed off of the location we're in. So in this instance, we had a session there. We were leveraging this like leaky bucket analogy. And it was down in San Diego. So I was like, all right, well, let's run with like a beach nautical theme with this and just try to like take it all the way there. So in the audience of anyone who joined that session, they got this little sort of pail, like a beach bucket with a shovel in it. And we had them participate in the session itself, working with water and leaky buckets. But then afterwards, they had these buckets, and I rolled out this pool of like mini gummy sharks. And everyone after the session went over, filled their pails with gummy sharks, and these pails had our logo on it. And I just kind of wanted it to be like a nice treat at the end. So we had all these leftovers. I take them back to the booth. And during the next session, everyone who wasn't a part of our original session was so intrigued by these pails of gummy sharks that we had a line at our booth of folks waiting to fill up pails with gummy sharks. And around this conference, it was incredible. We had people everywhere with pails. And, I was a little nervous at first because I was like, oh, maybe the conference organizers are going to be upset because we're like passing out food and candy and stuff like that. But people were so thrilled. In fact, we had some of the organizers were coming up trying to get gummy sharks as well until we ran out. But, it was like we got to meet everyone, and they came and we created that positive experience for them. And I'll tell you what, they walked away probably back to the hotel room with a pail of gummy sharks, and they probably didn't forget it. So that was probably one of my most favorite things that we did, partially by accident, but it was just incredible to see sort of how that ended up flourishing, even though I didn't expect it.
All the way to gummy candy. I remember that, Cody. Talk about being able to bridge the gap between a content topic of leaky buckets, hotel technology in San Diego. I mean, only someone with your brilliance can do that. That was a great story.
That story comes back to that energy that you talked about, like really bringing it up and inspiring people to like feel excited about a moment, right? So, kind of along those lines, what advice do you have to give other marketers about being more rebellious in their jobs?
Getting exposure to all the different areas of marketing. So I started as an intern in marketing, quite a while ago. And during that time, I got to experience literally every single piece of marketing that the company I was at did. So I think my advice would be for marketers is get familiar with your teams. If you haven't had the chance already, spend some time, if you're a creative person, spend some time working in digital, spend some time in automation, wherever it might be, wherever you feel that skill gap. Because I think overall, not only does it make you a better marketer, but when you're starting to think through some of these more rebellious plays or creative campaigns, it gives you the opportunity to think through how that's going to work across the board. And not only are you going to create a campaign that flows really nicely, but you're also going to get your team to really buy into that idea as well, because you're going to have a better understanding of some of the work that we all have to do to get that done. You think of ABM, it's not just one person running ABM, it's a team play and everyone has to be involved in it. So if you each can sort of understand where each other is coming from, maybe strengths and weaknesses in all areas, you're just going to be that much more successful in building out what your dreams look like.
Really good advice, Cody. I loved running ABM plays with you. That was so much fun. And we won a lot of business, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah, it was incredible. We had a lot of fun getting to do that as well.
For sure. Well, I'd like to know your take on this. Like, how do you make a rebellious move at work, not knowing the outcome or the consequences?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like it can always be so daunting, like not really knowing where something is going to go. But it's so much of it is about taking sort of those calculated risks. I could sit there and string along quotes all day of like, you learn from your failures, or you must try first, whatever it might be. Like there's so many of those, but I think that's truly the case is really learning from what you do. And sometimes you're learning from a big flop. Sometimes you're learning from, something you could have improved upon and iterating it. But within those lines, it's also baking in some tactics that you just know work. You know, you don't have to always go out completely on a full ledge and, you know, throw everything off a cliff and just hope it lands. You know, you can always sort of incorporate some of those safety nets, or at least ways to sort of see how it's going as you're continuing along the campaign. So if you see one area is maybe not going as well as you thought it was, great, have a backup, move something else in there, swap it out, like have something else for those folks to move into. You know, if something's not sticking, there's always other options to get people interested.
Really smart. Yeah, you got to inspect what you're expecting, right? And being able to be agile and not like, this was the plan, being able to make it work and swap things out, I think is really important for marketers to learn how to be more agile.
So Cody, I'm curious, what rebel in our culture do you think needs to be celebrated and why?
Oh, it's funny we were talking about ice cream earlier because a lot of what I do is based off of a lot of the work from Christina Tosi, who's over at Milk Bar.
To transform you into a more creative, more confident baker.
I have always grown up baking, creating treats. Learned a lot from my mom, from my grandma. And, you know, a lot of what we did were always a lot more of those like traditional type of treats, which is fantastic. But I had seen the documentary that Christina Tosi was in, and I was just in awe of her ability to take so much of the flavors, the styles of treats that we know, desserts, cakes, what have you, and put an entirely different spin on it.
It's all about you and what's in your kitchen and what's in your brilliant imagination.
So, you know, anywhere from having ice cream that's made out of cereal milk to pie that has cornmeal in it to, I think recently there's an apple cider donut cake. It's amazing to sort of see that creative flexibility that they have to make something new out of something really traditional. And I feel like as marketers, we have the same opportunity to take some of those traditional tactics and really start to transform them by putting a different spin on it, trying something a little bit different. And so I don't know, she's always not only just a great inspiration for me in terms of like the baking world. I love working out of her cookbook, all about cake, you know, whether it's following a recipe exactly or trying something different, but it's feeling that empowerment to take convention and not necessarily throw it out the window, but put a fresh spin on it.
Basically a chopped champion, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love what she does with nostalgia in new ways. Like she, you know, so many things that are like give us those memories from when we were a kid or what our grandma made, but she turns it on its head. In a way, it's still so comforting and familiar.
Exactly. I mean, sign me up. I wish there was one in Oregon. So if she hears this, Christina, please, we need a Milk Bar in Oregon.
Come our way, please. We will help fund this operation. Okay, Cody, so now it's time for our Honey, I Don't Think So segment. You're going to have 60 seconds to state your case for what needs to stop now in marketing or in MarTech. And Galen is going to be holding you very firm to the timeline and we'll be counting you down. So, Cody, are you ready for your Honey, I Don't Think So?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Cody, go ahead. Give us your Honey, I Don't Think So.
All right. So what I think we need to stop doing is having useless swag. You know, swag is one of those things that we see at all trade shows, events, and I think it can be really helpful, but I get really, really, really tired of seeing swag that ends up sitting on tables. People pick it up, they put it in their bags, and then they throw it away on their way out. It makes me so sad because I think there's such great opportunity to build out really creative swag programs and things that people actually want to use and leverage. You know, seeing it in the garbage is always a bummer because not only is it just kind of a waste of money, but it wastes the resources and, you know, the environmental impact is never great from that as well. So I think if we could all start to think through ways that we can take that swag and turn it into something that's a bit more useful. Some of the things that I love seeing are like grow kits, growing your own plants, having reusable cups or like mugs, even books or donations to charities. I think there's great ways that you can engage your audience and have them walk away with something positive from your booth without making it wasteful.
We did it, y'all. Cody, I'm with you. Congratulations. Listen,
Thank you.
So great talking to you. I think you've given marketers so much good advice, and we'll be watching out for what you're up to next.
It was great catching up, and thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for listening to the Rebel Instinct podcast. Be sure to follow Act On Software for updates and upcoming episodes. And remember to always act on your Rebel Instinct. Until next time.